This is Zero Station, broadcasting across the world to the Allied, Axis and Sino-Soviet Union blocs, as well as the countries of the Neutral Nations Organization.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Zero Station, the Dust Warfare podcast from Unit Forward. My name is Alex and today I'm going to take a look at recent developments in the world of Dust Warfare and Dust generally. In particular, I'm going to examine the claim that Dust is dead because of recent events and delays. After this episode, I think it'll be clear that Dust is still alive and very much still breathing. I'm also going to discuss some listener feedback I've received. Thanks to everyone who sent in feedback, and please continue to do so. Okay, let's go. Okay, welcome to episode 2 of Zero Station, a very delayed episode 2 of Zero Station. I'm sorry for the huge delay between episode 1 and 2. This episode, if you're listening in the future, you probably won't even realize this, but this episode was meant to come out 2 weeks after the last one, and it's actually come out more like 2 months after the last one. It's just things that have got in the way, trying to find time to podcast is never an easy thing in the first place. But it is out now, and I'm going to be talking today about recent claims that some people have made on the internet, random people on the internet, made these claims that Dust is dead. Dust Warfare, Dust Tactics, these games are dead. Who plays these games anymore? All those kind of things. Dust is very much not dead, but given recent events and delays and things that have happened, kind of actually don't blame them for thinking that, Dust might not be a living, breathing game anymore. And one of the things I think that has caused, this sentiment to go around the interwebs is the fact that Wave 8.1 was delayed for so long. It was meant to come out at the end of August. It eventually has come out now in the middle of October 2013. And a lot of stores actually, aren't stocking it, even though it is out. Battlefront has it in the warehouses. Battlefront, has it available. In the UK at least, all the game shop has to do is get in touch with Battlefront and say, hey, we'd like to order in some of the new Dust stuff, and they'll gladly send some along, after appropriate payment has been made. But I think a lot of stores even don't know that Wave 8.1 is available, given the delay and the whole, transition thing from Fantasy Flight Games to Battlefront, and, maybe some stores were used to seeing new Dust stuff show up on the Estevium new release sheet. Estevium Games is pretty much the main distributor for hobby games in the UK. And because Dust used to be distributed and marketed by Fantasy Flight Games, Dust stuff used to appear on the Estevium new release sheet every Friday afternoon. But that's not happening anymore now with, Battlefront taking over. And so maybe some stores just think that, maybe because Dust has disappeared for so long from those sheets that Dust, isn't around anymore. It's not, it's not a thing anymore. It's not being produced or whatever. And really, I think players have to kind of be a bit proactive here and ask their local store to order in Dust. It is available, at least 8.1 is available at the moment. And by the time you listen to this, the whole of Wave 8 may be out if you listen to this sometime in the future. But at the time I'm recording this, Wave 8.1 is out, 8.2 is imminent, and 8.3 should be released next month. I mean, they are all delayed, but they are coming out. And yeah, players have to kind of push their, local game stores and say, look, I want to order this stuff. What, can you get some in? Or, where is it if you've already asked them? Because game stores have a lot of stock coming in and out every week. There's no such thing as a dedicated Dust store, as cool as that would be. So you have to kind of push your local game store and say, look, I'd like to order in some Dust. Can you order some in for me? If the store doesn't want to order in any Dust for you, then, challenge them on that. Ask them why, especially if they have, walls full of Flames of War, on the shelf. Because if they can get Flames of War, they can get Dust. Simple as that. But, most game stores seem to like money and seem to like making money. So I guess they'd be able to, order in Dust Wave 8.1. But you have to go and ask them. Don't kind of wait for them to say, hey guys, everyone, we've got some Dust 8.1 stock, come and have a look, come and buy some. You have to go to them and say, I want to order this stuff. But anyway, yeah, the transition from FFG to Battlefront, although it has been going well, I guess, on a kind of, how to put it, a company level, so to speak. There's been no big hiccups in that respect. Battlefront and Dust Studio still seem to love each other very much. On the player side, it does seem a bit, the picture does seem a bit different, I guess, because 8.1 was delayed for 6 weeks. And also because the Warfare Achilles rules are not out yet. And to be honest, I don't expect to see these rules until like December 2013 at the earliest. And I have no idea, what kind of form they'll take. Is it going to be a PDF? Is it, how are they going to distribute this? Ideally, I'd like to see the Achilles rules distributed as a PDF on the World of Dust site, which I'll get to in a second. Because that would be a nice token gesture for Warfare players who have, had to wait for ages, to get the new rules. I mean, I can't wait for new rules to come out so I can talk about them on the podcast and, on the YouTube channel, discuss them and, so we can see, how Achilles has been brought into Dust Warfare. But yeah, I don't think that recent developments, and all the delays have really helped kind of, Dust's image, so to speak. But Dust is definitely not a dead game. No way. I mean, there are communities all over the world who are playing Dust. There are French communities, of course. Infamously, there are a lot of people in France who play Dust. There's the Portland community over in the US. There's the Southwest community around, I think it's around Phoenix, who play Dust. There are a lot of people around the world who are playing and enjoying Dust Warfare and Dust Tactics, and probably even the Dust board game, which, by the way, has become quite hard to find. The other day I was trying to find a copy of the Dust board game, and it's pretty hard to track down actually, even on eBay. But yeah, there are a lot of people around the world who are playing Dust, and yeah, it's not a dead game by any means. Now, the other thing that has led to the whole idea that Dust might be a dead game is the fact that you can't easily find a game of Dust Warfare or Dust Tactics, in any given part of the world. And it is true that some parts of the world are more active with Dust, and there are other parts of the world that are not so active. So, for example, I've mentioned the communities in Phoenix, community in Portland as well in the US. The French communities, there are Australian communities as well playing Dust. There are bits around the world where Dust is more popular than other places. I mean, in London, where I live, in London, UK, I haven't managed to get a Dust group formed as yet, because I've been so busy with other things, and I'd really like to. But at the same time, this doesn't mean that Dust is dead either, because really it's up to players to get communities started in their area. If you play Dust, if you like the idea of Dust, and nobody else in your area plays it, then try to get it started up. It only takes one other person to play Dust with you, a friend, someone who you maybe talk to, maybe shared emails over the internet with. It takes one other person, and then things start happening. You go and invade a local game store, ask them, can we take a table? Maybe you have to pay for the privilege, but, take a table at the local store, at a local club or whatever. And once you start playing Dust, people will walk over. They'll wander over and ask, is this Dust? I've never seen it played in person. A lot of people actually tend to say that, I've heard of Dust, but I've never actually seen it in person. So yeah, a lot of people will wander over and ask you, which game is this? What are you doing? And, introduce them to Dust. And who knows, maybe that'll snowball and you'll get a community going in your area. But the thing is that Battlefront and Dust Studio aren't going to create that community for you. You have to do that yourself in your area. I mean, the DDI will help you with, whatever help you might need in terms of, materials and things like that, like league materials and whatever to, try and get a community started. But, you have to kind of push things forward yourself. You can't just buy a load of models, get a nicely painted army and then think, right, come on, let's have a game. Wait, there's nobody here to play with me because I haven't actually gone out and reached out to anyone to see if anyone wants to play. You have to, push ahead and try to form a community in your area. And in places where people have done that, Dust has flourished. Dust is in itself an amazing game. And in my own experience, whenever I've introduced someone to Dust, they've enjoyed it. They maybe didn't get into it as such, at least not on the first 1 or 2 plays, but they did enjoy the game. I've never had somebody turn around to me at the end of a demo game or whatever and say that, Dust is rubbish, I never want to play this again, I never want to see this game as long as I live, They've always commented on how, how fluidly it plays, how easy it is to get into. The rules aren't super complicated, which I think is a hallmark of the game. If you want other people to play with in your local area, if you want to start, a Dust scene, a Dust thing in your area, then reach out to people and see if there is anyone locally who wants to play. And there may actually be an episode of Zero Station where I focus on that topic, creating Dust communities. An episode of Zero Station might focus on that in the near future. Okay, another development in the world of Dust, away from all the doomers and gloomers and people saying that Dust is now a zombie, no pun intended, is that a new website has gone up for Dust, the official website, theworldofdust.net. It can also be accessed at dust-tactics.com, which kind of drew a bit of ire from people, from Warfare players, saying that, it's supposed to be, a website about, all things Dust. Why is it called dust-tactics.com? I link to it as theworldofdust.net because I just think it's more appropriate. Unfortunately, the .com has been taken until November 2013. So I actually posted on the Facebook group that, as soon as that expires, Battlefront should grab it. But at the moment, it is theworldofdust.net. And the website has all the current forces for the Axis, Allies, and SSU. Not all of them are linked because apparently FFG has to sell through all of their stock before Battlefront can start, listing things on their own site and, producing it in the new boxes. But it is kind of handy, like a checklist of sorts. You can go to the site, click on the faction name, and then it shows you all the different boxes you can buy for that army. So, if you're missing 1 or 2 and you're not sure which ones you're missing, then you can go there and, just check off the boxes you already have, and then it will be clear, okay, I need to get these guys, I need to get this model, I need to get this model, and then I'll have all of the Axis, all of the Allies, or all the SSU. The website is also important in that it's a place where you can send new players to. Up until now, when, after the whole Battlefront thing started, you had to send people to Gale Force 9's website, gf9.com, which is a bit weird because GF9 has a lot of other products as well. They don't just do Dust. And it's kind of weird sending somebody to a site, when they're asking about Dust, where they have Dust on the site, as well as, Dungeons and Dragons models and, star mats for playing X-Wing on and, things like that. So it's good to be able to send someone now to, a dedicated Dust website. Like if they want to know more about Dust, go to theworldofdust.net. The website itself isn't done by any means. It's not complete by any means. It's still a work in progress. And Battlefront even admits that on the front page, but it is a good start, and it's good to have an official Dust website to send people to when people ask, what is this game, Dust Warfare, Dust Tactics? Well, go to this website and, ye shall find out. So that's theworldofdust.net. Go and visit it. There's also a forum. Go sign up for the forum. They are, in effect, the official Dust forums now. So, go and sign up for the forums and, start talking to people about Dust. There are actually quite a few forums around the net that are, now dedicated to Dust. There's the World of Dust forums, the official forums. There's the DDI forums at the Dust Devils website. There's the Dust War forums. There are forums on other places like Bell of Lost Souls and Wargames Consortium. And also, of course, at Panzerpunk as well. That's another dedicated set of forums for Dust. So there are quite a few around. So, just pick 1 or 2 and, sign up and start posting. I'll put all the links in the show notes for this show. So, take your pick and go and sign up and chat about Dust. Okay, now I'm going to discuss some of the feedback that I've received from listeners since the last episode of Zero Station, and since the first episode as well, which was episode 0. Thank you for sending in the feedback, by the way. It's always much appreciated, because, I have no idea what I'm doing, if, unless people send me feedback. I just assume that everything's going well and, what I'm doing is the right thing to do. So if you send in feedback, then, that helps to shape the direction of the podcast. And the first bit of feedback I want to discuss, which quite a few people actually mentioned, is the length of the show. And that the past couple of episodes have been quite short, at least by wargaming podcast standards. And it is true that episodes of Zero Station are quite short. This episode is probably going to be quite short as well. Obviously, I don't know how long or short it's going to be until I've actually edited it and, put it all together and uploaded it. But it is probably going to be quite a short episode as well. I don't make the episodes short on purpose. I just have this thing about, podcasting where an episode only has to be as long as it needs to be to discuss any given topic. And this also kind of stems from the last podcast that I did, Deconstruct, an MTG podcast. One of our core principles on that podcast was that you shouldn't waffle, get to the point, don't waffle. And that tended to make the episodes on that podcast generally quite short, which we thought was going to be a problem. I say we. I used to co-host it with a friend, Dan, who moved back to Malaysia in 2008. And, he's a kind of a media guy, a radio guy. And, we used to take the podcast quite seriously. Not too seriously, not in terms of, really, talking seriously about MTG, but, kind of just, having fun making the podcast, but at the same time, try to be professional about it, at least a little bit. And yeah, the way that we did the podcast meant that the episodes were usually, quite short, and we thought it would be a problem. We thought, well, people might want longer episodes. As it turned out, the feedback that we got for that podcast showed us that people actually like the shorter episodes, because with a shorter episode of about half an hour, 40 minutes, you can listen to it on your way to or from work. You can listen to it in your lunch hour. If you've got half an hour spare while while dinner's in the oven or something, then you can, listen to the podcast. And generally, people do have half an hour free, a lot more than they have an hour or hour and a half or 2 hours free for something, especially for something like listening to a podcast. So we continued to do the shorter episodes because, feedback showed that it was, it seemed to be a good thing. And that's kind of seeped into Zero Station, I guess, maybe on a subconscious level. I talk just enough to be able to make a podcast, an episode, I should say, that is half an hour long or 40 minutes long. I mean, I know a lot of wargaming podcasts are a lot longer, and, just general gaming podcasts as well. D6 Generation is infamous for having, podcasts that are 4 hours long and that you have to listen to in chunks, or maybe on a long drive. But yeah, I mean, Zero Station episodes are, just as long as they have to be in order to discuss whatever I'm talking about that, on that day. And, there's no preset kind of time limit. I'm not trying to aim for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 1 hour or whatever. They're just as long as they have to be. Okay, the other bit of feedback that was frequently repeated in the feedback that I've received for Zero Station is the subject of a co-host, and that, I should have a co-host on podcast. I guess it would be nice to have a co-host on Zero Station, although I'm kind of used to casting solo. I used to be the kind of person who needed a co-host, and, I couldn't do a podcast without a co-host. What do I say? It's just me talking. What do I say on the cast? But, over the past few years, I've become more accustomed to casting on my own. Although I'm not averse to having guests every now and then on the show. It'd be nice to get guests on to, discuss like maybe new rules when the Achilles rules come out eventually for Dust Warfare. Maybe, have someone on the show to, discuss that. And co-hosts are good for bouncing topics around as well, for bouncing ideas around. Because it's not just one voice and one person, talking. It's, someone else's opinions, someone else's, ideas and so on. But, I mean, when it comes to co-hosting a cast, it sounds a bit... This is going to sound really elitist and really kind of, really, really bad. You can't just get anyone to co-host a podcast. I've heard a lot of, podcasts where you have like 2 or 3 people casting and it just doesn't work. They clearly just don't get on, and, the chemistry isn't there. So, I mean, really for co-hosting, you have to find, a good co-host. You have to find somebody who you can, who you're relaxed with, somebody who you can bounce ideas with, against, and also somebody, most importantly, who doesn't agree with you all the time. That's a really important part about co-hosting a podcast, because it gets really boring if the person you're talking with agrees with you all the time, or if you always agree with them. So it has to be that strange mix of someone who you get along with, but who you don't always agree with, and them vice versa to you as well. So maybe one day Zero Station will have a co-host. I don't know. But as I said, I'm not averse to having guests on at all. If anyone wants to come on the podcast, drop me a line. We'll talk about something. It's cool. So those were the bits of listener feedback that were most repeated. There was lots of other feedback as well. As I've said frequently in this episode. Thank you for sending in all the feedback. It is much, much appreciated. Otherwise, I'm literally just driving in the dark and have no idea what I'm doing. Have no idea what I'm doing generally. Let alone if nobody sends in feedback to let me know how I'm doing. Am I doing this good? Am I doing this bad? Whatever. So yeah, thank you for all the feedback. Okay, that was episode 2 of Zero Station. As always, thank you so much for listening. I think I'm going to cut the podcast there because I feel kind of like I'm rambling today. So let's cut it there. The next podcast will come along a lot sooner than 2 months. I can promise you that. Actually, there may be a bit of a blitz of podcast pretty soon, because there are some topics that I want to cover in each episode. So, as always, at the end of the show, contact details. If you want to get in touch, please do so. hello@unitforward.com is the address. And you'll also find Unit Forward on Twitter, on Facebook, just twitter.com/unitforward, facebook.com/unitforward. On Google Plus as well, unitforward.com/G+, so you don't have to remember or figure out the massive numbers that Google Plus likes to put in its URLs. And Unit Forward is actually now on app.net as well, which is kind of an alternative social network, Twittery type place. It's not really a Twitter replacement as such, but it does, at first glance, it does look like Twitter, but where development of new apps and stuff is encouraged, and where it focuses more on users instead of advertisers, the way Twitter is going. So if you want to hook up with Unit Forward, you can do it on app.net. The address is actually alpha.apps.net/Unit Forward. So if you want to sign up for app.net and maybe create a wargaming community on there, a Dust Warfare community on there, then hey, that'd be awesome. Oh, and don't forget to check out the Unit Forward YouTube channel at youtube.com/Unit Forward, where Wave 8.1 unboxings have started to go up. As always, if you're listening to this in the far future, then they're probably all up already. Wave 9, Wave 10 is probably up there, as if you're listening to this way into the future. But at the time of recording, Wave 8.1 unboxings have started to go up, and I want to say thank you again to Gareth at Battlefront UK for sorting that out and sending over models, which I'm unboxing on camera and then giving away, because as I said in the first video, for the USMC Fire Squad, I don't feel good about keeping stuff that I get for free like that, because it makes me feel like I get models free because I have a website and everyone else has to pay for them. So I'm giving them away to anyone who leaves a comment on the video's page. Okay, so that's about it for episode 2 of Zero Station. Until next time, see ya. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. That means you can give this podcast to anyone you want as long as the author is credited, but you can't make your own episode and you can't use this episode for commercial purposes without the author's permission.